Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Gelvin Valley in Farming Simulator 15. I'm kind of starting here at a different location than I typically do. Most of the time, it seems like where we head in game, we're staring at a brick wall. And I don't think I improved the view very much when I start today's in the cemetery at this church here up on top of the hill. Yeah, we're just north of Field 18 up there, up in the little town. It's a little by the livestock market. I wanted to come up here. I had an idea of something to talk about today, something I've rolled around in my head, but I was remembering, and I think it was the first episode on Gelvin Valley that my friend Atomic 67 made back in the day. I think he was Eustace Farmer at the time. He had a string of 17 episodes, I think, or maybe it was 18. And the very first one, he, some story. I think he started in America and then he came over to the UK. I don't know if he inherited a farm or just what happened. And he visited the cemetery and he had a headstone in here that had my name on it. And he obviously must have done that in a private edit because I'm looking through here. And I have cataloged all the dead that are in this here cemetery, and there's nobody here. All these headstones are blank. So, but it gave me an idea on something. It just around the family dinner table here the other day, and I'll get out of here. I'll go tab over to the vehicles and start farming. But at our family dinner table, we were. Oh, and I don't want to plant that. Let me see. What do I want to plant? Barley? Sure, why not? I might have to refill the planter on this one. At the family dinner table, somehow the topic of ghosts came up and cemetery. No, it wasn't ghosts. It was cemeteries. And just kind of the general creepiness, because I know I've mentioned in a couple other episodes, I had a couple people close to us or whatever that died, within the past couple weeks. And so yesterday was a funeral for the second of the two, and there's all these rituals, I guess you would call it, that we do as humans when someone passes away, and we give them a funeral or we give them a celebration of life or whatever we call it. There's some type of memorial that happens when someone passes away, and I think in the minds of a lot, there's always wonderment. What's on the other side? Does life continue in a different dimension? Is there judgment that comes for how a person's lived life? I mean, there's any number of questions, that will come to mind, as a person thinks about it. And maybe also there's, contemplation. Well, we put this person in a cemetery. What happens to their spirit? And, if anybody's ever been around and seen a dead body or more precisely, been there when the person has literally passed away, there's such an enormous difference between when they're living and when they're not. And my wife and daughter are both nurses, so they've seen this a lot more. I mean, I was north of 40 years old before I was ever in a room when someone passed away while I was standing there, and it was kind of a really odd experience. But one moment they're breathing and the next moment they're not. And you look at their bodies and it's like you can just tell. I know my wife has said this before, when she'd be checking on a patient, go into the room, and you could just tell without even checking any vitals that the spirit of the person, the essence of the person had departed, was gone, and all that was left was a body, which, as sometimes we hear, dust to dust, it returns to the earth. and becomes part of the Earth's elements once more. It just kind of, not to be morbid, that's just the nature of the beast, right? So, but most folks, if they're not cremated or whatever, they end up in a coffin, they end up in a cemetery, and somehow we got on this subject at the family dinner table, and my boys were, I think one of them just commented that, it always seemed kind of creepy to him to go to a cemetery in daytime, and he said there's no way he'd want to go there after dark. So I got a couple boys that enjoy camping and fishing and all that, and of course I just had to take this opportunity. I suggested, maybe we needed a new camping trip, and we would go pitch a tent in some cemetery and just spend the night there, and we could build a campfire and roast hot dogs over the top of someone's headstone or that kind of thing. I got to be a dad, right? It's a dad's job to pull the leg of his kids and talk about such things. Well, they played along, but they let me know in no uncertain terms they would not be interested in such a camping trip. So, and I don't know. I can't say the idea gives me a lot of pleasant thoughts either. I don't know why it's even something I've thought about before. Most of the time we don't think about that there maybe is another world out there, and I don't know. I think I mentioned on another one of these videos. I'm a Christian, and so in my personal belief system, I believe there is a world to come, and so I live with that belief. But between now and then is the part that I really don't know. Someone will, maybe ask a simple question. Well, do you believe in ghosts? And the only way I could answer that question is, I think so. There's enough evidence of strange things that have happened, that continue to happen, that I think there's something to it. But just what it is, I can't really put my finger on it. I don't know how to articulate it. And of course, when you start talking about these things, if you don't talk about it in just the right way, well, people think you're a nut or whatever. And there are some real fruitcakes out there that really get into this, and it becomes their obsession and focus. While meanwhile the rest of us are just trying to live life and not worry about such things. But if there wasn't something to it, and I feel even comfortable mentioning it as as a Christian, because I think there's references to ghosts and so forth in the Bible, and so and I'm not just talking about what we would call the Holy Ghost. That would be a type of a spirit, but I'm not talking about that. I know there's just other references to spirits or ghosts or that kind of thing. So, if it's in that book, in my belief system, then there's got to be something to that, or at least the people in that day believed that there was something to it, or there could be, just like people today do. And of course, if anybody has watched movies or read books, Hollywood has made a lot of hay out of that, and there's a lot of films that go into such details as all this, as to whether they exist or not, or what have you. But I guess some of what my curiosity is, and I'd really be interested seeing what comments people would have, is, I don't know, any personal encounters that you've had. Not necessarily personal encounters, I guess, if you will. I don't have any. I don't know how common those would be. And there's always a good deal of skepticism if, no matter what someone shares, someone else might say, is that really believable? Did that really happen? Or are they just making something up? And for me personally, I mean, zero personal encounters. It's not something I've ever thought about, hardly worried about. I mean, I just don't think my mind isn't oriented that way. But, I've seen documentaries. I know there are people that talk about such things, and maybe haunted homes at various locations around the U.S. or whatever, but only rarely, and maybe this is how it is for others, I don't know, only rarely would it be something that is close to, I don't even know how I'm saying it, close to where a person would be. So, I mean, let me give you an example. Um, I don't know if I mentioned this in the other series. I think I've mentioned I have a series on Lone Oak Farms. I spent some time there in my growing up years working there to earn money for college. And Bulliville made a map on the area. My family still farms in that area. Anyway, just off the map, just south of it, kind of following that gravel road that's kind of in the middle. If anybody's played it, you kind of know where I'm referring to. It's off the map just a little ways, but on that same road there is a cemetery, kind of on the next hill, if you will. And my grandmother's buried there, my grandfather. I have a niece and nephew buried there that died when they were just little tykes. There's a number of people in there that I know or that are close to me or whatever. But there was one year, this has maybe been a decade and a half ago. I really don't know. I'm not sure on the timing. Doesn't matter. But there was a group of kids who, when I say kids, I mean high school age, young people, messing around, doing whatever kids their age would do, out driving late at night, whatever they were doing. Hopefully they weren't drinking or they were behaving themselves. Um, but they drove down through there, and someone said they thought they saw a ghost. Which when you're heading south down that road, you go down a hill, kind of into a dip, and then you rise up the hill on the other side, and it's kind of on that rise that there's this cemetery in there. Well, I think there was more than one. I don't remember if it was a boy or a girl who saw this, said they saw a ghost, and they were totally freaked out. And I don't know what they did that particular evening, but this particular group of young people, they happened to attend the church that I go to, and I know it was a question they all had, when they went to their next Sunday school class or whatever. And I wasn't in that class, so I don't know what all was said. I just bring that up because, well, they thought they saw something. I'm not going to say they didn't, but I also don't know that they did either. Sometimes people do strange things or think they see things when they're in a particular environment, circumstance, whatever. Um, and so maybe it was just an illusion. Maybe they saw nothing. Shoot, for all I know, maybe they were making it up. Who knows? I mean, kids never make anything up, right? So that one's really close to home on Lone Oak, being that it's just out kind of in the sticks, if you will. But it isn't the only one. I mean, that's kind of somewhat innocuous, even. I mean, it's just not that big a deal. They thought they saw something, and then I think whoever was driving, they were driving through there when they saw it. I think they floored it and just got out of there, and probably stayed up half the night wondering about whether they saw something or not. There's another story that my father told me, and this one I think happened in the Midwest. It was with a couple elderly ladies that I think were in the church that I grew up in. And they were single, and I think they were sisters. So I think they had family relation, and they never married, as far as I know. I don't remember how old they were. I just seem to recall elderly. Of course, I heard this story when I was a kid, so back then, elderly probably meant anybody over about 26. And so Maybe they weren't as old as what I think they were, but together, because they weren't married, they decided to purchase a home together, kind of in the country or wherever they were living. I think this was maybe central Illinois. I'm not 100% sure on that. Somewhere in the Midwest. So they got this house, and as they lived in the house, they started noticing strange things happening. And usually when we think of something like ghosts, it's something that doesn't have matter to it. In other words, you could push your hand straight through them. Maybe you could see them, but there could be no interaction. They couldn't touch you. They couldn't touch things. And yet there's these stories out there, and this was one of them, where, according to the testimony of these women, um, where they said they started noticing things in the house that they couldn't explain. Where they would have, say, a loaf of bread on the kitchen counter, and all of a sudden they would just watch the loaf of bread go flopping onto the floor. And this is sitting on a perfectly level kitchen counter. There's absolutely no slope, no reason, no breeze, no other impetus at all, and they just watch the loaf of bread get pushed off onto the floor. I seem to recall there would be doors opened, shut, maybe windows also, and just some strange things that, like I say, they had no explanation for, and they couldn't figure out why they were happening. And, even as I tell it now, I almost feel it tingles at the back of my neck. Whoop, we are empty, folks. Alright, we'll park our tractor. We gotta go get, yeah, we need this guy here. Go get some more seeds. Somewhere I put seeds. Aha. There's a trailer. I'm trying to remember if they said there was any... Aren't you going to pick up that trailer? Hum. Are you kidding me? Oh, for goodness sake, it isn't going to let me haul this. Oh, bummer. Okay, so, Oh, wait a minute, I guess I do have another tractor. Never fear, right? I thought I could haul it with this. I guess I'll just get this other tractor. Here we go. We'll get there. I was envisioning having to bring the other tractor down. This one will haul it just fine. So I'm trying to remember if any dishes were broken, cups that fell out of the cupboards or that kind of thing. And I don't remember at this juncture any of those details. There may have been some of that. Yeah, don't really know. But it was starting to get troublesome. And when I say troublesome, what started to happen is, and what I can't remember is if they saw this ghost or entity or being or just what it was. That part I can't remember, but the part at the end that I recall was one of the ladies was sleeping one night, and she felt something tugging on her blankets. And it was eventually was enough, it woke her up. And like I say, I don't know if she could see something or not, but something was pulling the covers off her bed. And I think, you can well understand. Like I say, I feel the hair stand up on my neck just talking about it, because I'm trying to put myself in her shoes. If that was me, I'd be totally freaked out. And, well, at that point, I think what she did, and these were Christian women, and which is another reason in my mind that gives veracity to the story. I know, I know there are Christians out there that have been caught lying or that kind of thing. Um, but if you're a real Christian, if you truly believe it, I mean, there's a place where liars end up, and it ain't a good one. So this is something they told a number of people, but anyway, and another thing about Christians too is, when we're in trouble, we'll pray because we have a belief in God that He's able to help us. And so what this woman said she did is when this was happening and she was frightened, as anybody might expect, she started praying. And what apparently happened, if you can believe it, is this entity or being started wailing, and she said she heard it wail as it was moved or escorted, if you will, out of the window. I don't know if her window was open while this was all happening or if it went through the grass or glass rather. I don't know those details. I'm gonna take the back way up here, and after that point, it was like the ghost, the entity, whatever it was, had been eliminated from the house. They no longer had any trouble further, with strange things happening to loaves of bread or what have you. Everything was staying put. Well, come to find out, I don't know if this is research they did later. Like I say, you need to be careful who you talk to about these things because, they may just look at you and say, "Well, you're nuts. You're crazy. This can't be real, and you're just, putting me on." Well, come to find out, they did some research on their house, and apparently back in the day, I don't know how many years before they purchased the house, a former owner or someone in the house committed suicide in one of the closets and hung himself or something in there. And so, they've kind of just wondered, if maybe that was who it was. And I don't know how that happens. To where some entity or being, I have absolutely no explanation for it. Um, like I say, my belief system is on the Bible, so that's what I take to be solid. Um, but it doesn't explain, at least not to my knowledge, as to what this, could have been or why, if this was the ghost of the fellow who committed suicide, why was he in the house? That that doesn't quite fit the belief system, if you will, as to where people and spirits go, when they die. But there's some mysteries there, and I don't care if someone's a Christian or not. I mean, I've never met anybody who can explain, what that is. So it just kind of is what it is. So all I know, I mean, I guess you could say they lived happily ever after. I think I would have tried to sell the house and get out of there long before this happened, but I do know sometimes there are experiences people have in these situations, and they're pretty, I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for, stoic about it, or matter of fact, or just what it is, and that's the third one that I was thinking of here in terms of stories like this. My business partner's wife came from the Midwest area. Maybe all this happens in the middle of the country. I don't know. She came from the Midwest, and I don't think she was in the home, but her parents and her sister and brother. It might have been after she got married. Um, yeah, I shouldn't say I don't remember all those details, but the family lived in the old family home out in the country, if you will, and similar type things were happening in the house, to where they would hear footsteps. It was a two-story country house, older home. Footsteps upstairs, where the family was sleeping. I can't remember if the parents slept down on the lower floor and the kids were in the upper floor. Don't remember. Just know that they heard footsteps up there. They would hear doors open and close. Um, there was a time when there was a storm coming, I think, and I think someone went upstairs to close tightly all the windows, which the last they knew they were open. They found every single one of them shut and locked, and I think there was other things that happened where chairs that they had put out for company that were going to come, if they had a gathering in their home, that somebody had mysteriously rearranged the chairs or stacked them all back up. I think they were like folding chairs or something. Just strange things happening in the house for which, there was no explanation. Well, it's kind of supposition on their part, I guess, but they thought it was the ghost of, maybe in this case, a grandmother. And that years ago various other family members remember her. She would be like one of the last one of the family to bed, and part of her going to bed ritual, if you will, would have been to check on the kids, on the family sleeping in each room. And hey, I'm a parent, I can relate to that. And in my home, I'm typically the last one to bed, and especially when the kids were little, that was very common. I would just go into the room and make sure they're still breathing, that they're not awake, if they don't need something. So that sounds exactly like something a caring parent, or a mother in this case, would do. But yet she passed away. I don't remember if she died in the house, but it wasn't. These people here didn't describe it as a frightening experience. They were so calm about it, and you would kind of have to know these people to understand why it maybe seems a little strange that they would be calm about it. Because there are some other things where they most assuredly are not calm, but yet there was no fear or anxiety over this, or whatever you would call it. It was just, oh, that was mom or grandma up there checking on the family. I don't think anybody ever saw her. There may have been some periodic annoyances, if you will, if grandma stacked up all the chairs and they had to undo it. Kind of like a traditional mother, always cleaning up after the kids' messes and, oops, I missed a little spot there. Messes and whatnot. So that may have been what they felt she was doing, by putting all the chairs back together. Who knows? Seriously, who knows? All I know is to them it was a positive experience, and yeah, they didn't, after a while, they didn't think anything of it. And I don't know if they ever interacted with this entity or whatever it was, or talked to her, or yeah, those details I just don't know. Maybe they did. Um, but I think I've heard of some others. Like I say, I know I've seen a couple documentaries on it. Maybe some others have too, where there just are those experiences where people, it's like they get used to a ghost living in the house, and they even talk to it from time to time. I remember one documentary where some woman was describing this entity in their home, and she said, one time I had a conversation with, whatever the guy's name was, with Bill, whatever it was. I couldn't see Bill. I talked to him and said, Bill, I know you're here, and I'm okay with that, but there's one thing I never ever want to do, and that is I don't want to see you, Bill. So please, can you just stay hidden? A part of me says having a conversation like this just seems ridiculous. But that was, the lady's testimony, if you will, as to what she experienced, what she saw, and what have you. So, anyway, what kind of ghost stories would you have? And I know they abound all over the internet, and it's always, trying to separate fact from fiction. It's almost like there is something in the human psyche that enjoys periodically being frightened or scared, and maybe it's because we like the relief that comes when we go through something scary and then everything's okay again. I don't know what it is. Like I say, Hollywood's made a lot of hay with this over the years. They have all kinds of scary movies, and I don't know. There's a part of me I just don't care to watch that stuff. If it's just fake anyways. But I know some people really enjoy that kind of thing, and these people here, there's no reason for me to disbelieve these people, because like I say, you run a risk when you share stories like this that you'll get called crazy or something like that. So I would think the incentive would be to not tell stories like this because you don't want people calling you a fruitcake. So, but who knows if they're true? What do you all think? I'm looking at the time here and I'm already over half an hour, so I think I'm going to terminate the episode here. Thank you all for watching. I tried to do a little bit of farming in amongst all this blarney. Hope you have a wonderful day, week, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Bye-bye for now.